My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 157 of Legally Clueless. If you've always been part of the fam, thank you so much. And if this is your first time ever listening to the podcast, welcome to the family. Join our social media space on Instagram, we're at Legally Clueless Podcast. On Facebook, we're at Legally Clueless. And on YouTube, Legally Clueless as well. Links to all of those platforms are in the show notes. But in case you're listening on a platform that doesn't have show notes, you need to think about changing the platform, but also you can't miss us. We're like super yellow on all of those platforms. And speaking of our YouTube channel, later this week, depending on when you're going to be listening to this, our Dubai episode is going to be out. Yes. There's going to be a new episode on our tour series, and it's Legally Clueless Touring Dubai, which was so different for me, so insightful, so I can't wait for you to hear the stories that we recorded there of Africans living in Dubai, what took them there, the experience. It's something. But we'll talk more about it once the episode is out. So it goes out Friday, the 18th of March. All right, so back to this episode. This is what you can look out for coming up.
So I remember when the results came in and I missed a lot of marks to doing architecture. I was crushed. In my head, I loaded, I was a failure. I fall sick 2 days after admission. I go to her room and she's like, Joy, why are your eyes yellow? I remember just after that cut, I fell sick again. I'll just be hanging out with people, then my shoe just leaves my, I'd say my shoe leaves my leg. So you feel like, maybe I'm just being clumsy, you know? You're holding a cup, then it just randomly falls. My hand had started getting weak. I'm leaving my bed. I try to stand and then I fall down. But no, the whole time I hadn't realized I'd gotten a stroke. The first thing that hit my mind, I can't draw. And interior design is all drawing. So I'm like, Okay. I got the CT scan done and I was told I have a brain tumor.
That's a story by Joy. We recorded this story actually during our tour last August when we set up camp in Kisumu at Lake Hub, and I've actually really been waiting to share it with you, and so I'm super excited that it's coming up a little later in this episode. Okay, let's jump into the song of the week. Let me tell you, I have so much psych and energy for song of the week. I don't know where from. First things first, I'm super happy that I have not made a Legally Clueless playlist on Spotify just because of what's been going on with their stance on Joe Rogan. I'm not too sure I appreciate that, so I'm glad I haven't put it there. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out where to put the playlist. I know there definitely going to be more than one playlist because there are moments of giving you songs that are good for the bedroom. There are moments of giving you songs that are good for like road trips, songs that are good for like turn up, songs that are good for like more introspective moments. So just trying to work all of those knobs out and then you'll have the playlist. But in this episode, the song that I want you to check out, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this chick's name right. Ego Ella May? I feel like the ego is not. Anyway, I'll just say I'm pronouncing it that way so that you know how to spell it. Yes, that's the excuse I'm going to go with. And the name of the song is Give a Little. I really, really love this song. I've done my thing of like going deep into the lyrics, just because also I feel like the space that I'm in currently, I really do identify with some of the lyrics. Like there's a bit where she goes like, where we go we don't know, just trying to stay on our path. I've been here before, yet still end up on my ass. And I'm just like, sis, louder for those of us at the back. And there's a part she says, somebody told me that the prize is in heaven, but what about living today? Do I have to die for some peace or a little bit of extra empathy? That's something, isn't it? I love it. So I put a link to the song in the show notes. It's called Give a Little. It's by Ego LMA, and I hope you dig it as much as I do. It's one of those shea butter songs, It sounds like what I feel like putting shea butter on your beautiful black skin sounds like. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, moving on, a bit of a catch up. I've had a very hectic week. Yeah, It's just been a long time since I had a very long, freaking long time since I had such a hectic week. I just thought that I would share that in case you're navigating something that's challenging or hectic. That's my word for it. I would like to send you grace. And the reason I say grace is because I've learned, or I learned this a long time ago, but I always forget it, that one thing that I always want is clarity, and a lack of noise. And I guess that's a human thing. You get uncomfortable when there's so much noise around you, right? So why I say I'm sending you grace is it's because I also need grace. I've been asking the universe to just gift me abundance of grace, because for you to allow time to do its thing and gift you clarity, you have to be graceful about it. You can't rush it. So you need grace to give time its time. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's where I'm at. And I don't know, maybe you're there as well for whatever reason. I'm just asking the universe to drown us in grace. Okay, quickly before we jump into the story, because this episode story is pretty long, I wanted to see if I can squeeze in a quick excerpt from the book I co-authored that's out. It's called Our Broken Silence. I wrote it with Lanji Okuawori. It's all about sexual violence and in the form of diary entries by survivors, people in various support systems, so like nurses, people in the legal space, family members of survivors, and so much more. And it looks at stories from pre-colonial times to present day across East Africa, so not just Kenya. And if you check the show notes, you can get the link to, if you're in Kenya, where you can buy the book. It's currently at a bookstore called Soma Nami. So you can either go there physically, they're off Ngong Road at Greenhouse Mall, or you can just go to www.somanami.com. .co.ke. And if you're not in Kenya, the book is on Amazon. You can buy the Kindle copy or the hard copy. Again, I've put the link in the show notes, or you can just search Our Broken Silence. So the piece or entry I'm going to share is one I wrote about telling my mom that I'd gotten raped. Trigger warning. Date: a letter to my mom. Dear diary, I waited for her to leave her room for the shower, and that's when I did it. The cancer was back, and she was in the middle of her chemotherapy cycles. It was painful to watch her go through a treatment that looked like it was killing her, just so that she could destroy a disease that could kill her. Twisted. But in many ways, I identified with her. I used to think that on that night, an important part of me was stolen. I wasn't sure what part, but I knew something was missing. It's almost like stealing from someone drenched in abundance. They'll only discover you've robbed them after a while, and even after that, it may take them a long while to identify what was stolen. So for 2 years, as she fought off cancer, I fought sometimes to rebuild, sometimes to replace, and sometimes forget what was stolen, and sometimes to forget what was stolen. It worked for a while, especially when I tried to forget, because it meant I didn't have to confront it. I could walk around pretending it never happened, pretending that I was a virgin, I wasn't interested in men, and that my focus was on school and an open mic gig I had started with a friend. Everything I focused on to forget thrived, until the one thing I was not focused on broke me. I often broke over the 2 years. The cracks would show up in public, when there were loud noises that would startle me, when I'd take the stairs and not the lifts because I was scared of being robbed again in a lift, when I would get what I now know are panic attacks and would have to bolt to the nearest bathroom before the tears consumed me. The cracks were nightmares every other night, where the robbery would replay itself and end with him looking me dead in the eye. After months of this, I realized nothing was stolen from me. Nothing was taken. No. A stranger broke into my house and killed a part of me the night he raped me. It was dead, and there was no reviving or rebuilding it. This realization was one of the most painful truths I've ever had to confront in my entire life. I knew I needed help acknowledging this death, mourning it, and maybe even healing from it. I had to tell her. I've always found written words to be my most efficient means of communication. Whenever I try to speak out my feelings, it's like the words are held captive by my emotions, and they don't come out in the order I want them to, or they don't come out at all. So I decided to write her a letter. It had to be factual and show that I was a few paces into healing. I didn't want her to know how shattered I was. That would definitely stress her. My letter had a matter-of-fact tone. I detailed what happened that night, that I hadn't reported it, that I'd gone to the hospital, done the necessary tests, and been on medication for 6 months to rule out any infections. I assured her my hospital stamped a clean bill of health. I didn't write about the nightmares, about how hard it was to breathe whenever his face flashed across my mind, or about how endless my tears were. From my room, I could hear her get into the shower. I folded the letter and left it on top of her bed, and then sprinted back to my room. I waited for almost 20 minutes, and then I heard her turn off the shower. It was too late to go and grab the letter back. While I was lost in thoughts, wondering if this was the right thing to do, she stormed into my room and hugged me. All this time, I didn't know this was what I needed. This was what I needed to feel safe. A hug from my mother. She hugged me tight while asking more about the tests I did in the hospital. She asked me if I wanted to report it to the police. She thanked me for telling her. The very next day, my mother started shopping around for therapists. I hadn't told her about the dead parts of me, but she knew. Whew. All right. Probably the first time I've read that particular piece without crying. Yeah, I don't have anything to add on to that, honestly. I really don't. So, before I start crying, let me intro the story that's on 100 African Stories. We recorded this during our tour last year in August when we were in Kisumu. It was such an awesome encounter meeting Joy. She's such a vivacious young African woman. Her story touches on brain tumors, grief, and building a business. 100 African Stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
My name is Joy Lois Wanga. Lois with a C, not an S. I was born in Busia, the border town in Kenya. Yeah, but I've lived in Eldoret and many other places, and Kisumu. Kisumu was here for study. I am the founder of Zamani Creates. It's a design firm based in Kisumu. I have a branch in Busia. Currently, it's still new. I'd say it's still new, yes, because the second branch is like a month old. We don't really have an office space as at now because, I don't know, I looked at the logistics of that and it just didn't make sense. Yeah, eventually I intend to have that in the vision, in the bigger picture. I intend to have one. Yeah, but for now we're working with what we have. So meeting up with clients in restaurants and, growing up, I had a love for art. I think I discovered art in like class 6, those Club Kiboko. And I used to just get so fascinated. Like I would never miss any episode of Club Kiboko because we would create things. And I remember I used to really, really, really press my mom to get me manila paper so that I can draw along and, create along and all that. So it's just been in me. But there was this pressure I wanted to be like Dad. And Dad was an advocate, So yes, my English is good and I was doing good in school. So ideally, I would have been an advocate. I got to, I think, class 8 and I would watch movies in this fashion industries and I'd be like, I want to have that. I'd want to have a company of my own, And it was like, those desires that when people want to live in a mansion or in a palace, like I wanted to own a company. That was the dream. So I remember the first company I ever thought up it's called Sandrop Collection. It was supposed to be a fashion design company. And I knew nothing about fashion design. All I knew was you could just stitch up things together and make it look nice, So there's this time I remember taking some of my mom's clothes and reinventing, like I'd take her skirt and join it with a different kind of top, and it would just look fancy, And well, that didn't go well. Got a lot of beatings and a lot of earfuls, but I think that's basically the genesis of it. Then we went through high school and all that, and by the time I was getting to Form 2, I was like, okay, so clearly advocate is not working because history became hard. They didn't even like the teacher. I preferred geography to history, and there's that notion you have to do history to do law. So I was like, okay. So that's out. And I was in Kipsigis Girls. So it's in Kericho. We had art, we had computer, we had home science and business. So I remember I was in a class that didn't do art, but I wanted to do art. So now they literally created an entire stream. It was just 4 streams. So they created an entire stream for people who wanted to do art. So that class, it was, V, it was the V class. So there was W, X, Y, Z, but then they had to put a V class. So luckily, I was moved to that class. So now I was actually able to do art. When it came to now dropping subjects, I remember we had a fight with my mom about that, because first, I was actually performing well in history. I was actually performing well in geography. Then I had French and art. I had to drop one. And I was torn because I looked at it, I was like, okay, French, I could travel to Paris. And but then art was just something. There was something like it's just curious. It's like creating something from scratch. That was my thing, like I loved that. So I decided I'm done with history. I'm done with French. And I remember from that day, my French teacher hated me because I was one of her best performing students. So every single time she was on duty, she used to find faults in something. There was something Joy would do wrong. Whether it was there or not, but yes. Fast forward to campus. I ended up just finishing, and I remember when I was selecting courses rather, to do in campus, I remember my choices were architecture, interior design, graphic design, fashion design. It just had to be design. And my mom still had the hope in her heart that I would do law, so that, I'm the smart one in the family, and I was daddy's girl. So yeah, but I don't know, I just wanted to do design. So I remember when the results came in and I missed a lot of marks to doing architecture. So I was crushed. I remember I was so crushed because I was like, in my head, I loaded I was a failure. Though, if I think about it now, I'm like, that was an actually really good grade, The fact that I didn't have an A, for me, was like, you failed, because I'm a bit of a bookworm. And so, that just felt, and I have this toxic trait of beating myself up a lot when I don't achieve my goals. So I think that took a toll on me. And I remember it just got to a point, my mom was like, okay, whatever you want to do. If you want to do law, I will pay. If you want to do what, I will pay, just whatever. And so I decided to do interior design. So my mom was this parent where, yes, we have the internet. We have, you can just apply for things on your phone. But she would go physically to the school. So she went to UON, she went to Egerton, she went to Maseno University just to find out applications and all. She was all in. She was like that all in kind of mom, which is amazing. I think it was just a blessing for us, for me and my siblings. We landed on Maseno. It wasn't so far. Plus, I didn't want Nairobi. I don't know. There's something about Nairobi for me. I ended up studying interior design in Maseno University. And I remember the first year, I remember getting sick. So I had a liver infection. And so you've just joined campus and you are excited about the whole, I wanted to know everything there is to know about interior design. I was so eager, I actually started even Googling and I've not attended a single class. I'm just so curious. Then I fall sick 2 days after admission. And I remember it was so bad because I didn't even notice. I was just feeling off here, there. Then my temperature was high, but I was like, maybe next choke. I'm just tired. Then I remember going to see a friend of mine. We were in the same high school, and then we were both admitted to do interior design in Maseno. So she was basically my only friend at that time. So we were supposed to go for orientation and all that. Then I go to her room and she's like, Joy, why are your eyes yellow? And I'm like, my eyes are yellow? What do you mean? Then she gives me a mirror and my eyes were yellow. And I was like, okay. Then I was like, maybe to escape. I'll go to the dispensary and get checked. So we have breakfast. Then the minute I just took tea and then I just vomited the whole thing. And I was like, what's going on? Then almost it was like the tea was a trigger for everything else. So I just started shivering. I just got sick. So we go to the dispensary, they test for malaria, and it was a malaria. So the next thing, my friend just called my mom. She was like, yo, come pick Joy, she's not feeling well. I do not know. That commute from Eldoret, we were living in Eldoret at that time. The commute from Eldoret to Kisumu is ideally 4 hours. But my mom somehow got there in 2 hours. I have never understood till this day. I do not know. But she was there And I remember we just left everything. Like, we didn't even pick anything. She just took me. We were in the vehicle going home. And I remember my temperature was so high. So my mom was torn between covering me because I was shivering and the fact that she can literally feel the heat, you know? So we go home, we get tested, I'm put on medication. So this is like, I'm at home for like 3 weeks and I'm just stressed out because I'm like, I'm supposed to be in school. I don't know what interior design is. You know, like that, my mom was like, she was like, you should be focusing on getting better. Me, I'm focusing on, I'm not in school. I need to be in school, you know? Like my friends are learning and I'm just here, you know? And then like people will start having exams. And then the worst part, like 3 weeks into that, I remember a friend of mine texting me and telling me we're having cuts. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I do not know anything. I've not attended a single class. And I'm like, okay. So I tell my mom and I was feeling a bit better. It was a bit of a struggle. I feel like that's like a story for a whole podcast by itself. But yeah, so I got better. I go to school and now I have to catch up on 3 weeks worth of notes and reading and, you know, and who is this lecturer? What does he teach? I don't know what units are because I'm used to subjects. I get to doing the cut that had actually brought me back to school. I remember just after that cut, I fell sick again. And this time it was so bad. It was those things that build up, but you don't realize until it's too late. So I remember what happened was I'd just be hanging out with people, then my shoe like just leaves my, I'd say my shoe leaves my leg. So you feel like, maybe I'm just being clumsy, you know? You're holding a cup, then it just randomly falls. My hand had started getting weak and I hadn't noticed. You know, these are not things you notice really. Plus, I'm just there enjoying campus and, you know, meeting people and just the whole vibe. Then I remember one morning we had a class at, I think, 9. So I wake up at 7 and I'm so psyched. So I wake up, I'm leaving my bed. I try to stand and then I fall down. And I was like, wait, no, chill. So I tried to stand again. But you know, no, the whole time I hadn't realized I'd gotten a stroke and I didn't know. I didn't even know it. Maybe at that time, okay, yes, I knew what a stroke is, but you never really relate it to yourself. Like, there is no way. I try again and then I fall. So I was in a room with 6, we were 6 people, we were 6 girls. So they were like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, you guys, I can't feel my hand. Then now I'm aware, you know. So I'm like, okay, I can't feel my leg. And it's literally like one side of my body, my right side, I can't feel it. And I'm like, so it was like until somewhere here. And I'm like, okay, so what is this? I just like had a mini panic attack, you know, because now I didn't know what's going on. And the first thing that hit my mind, I can't draw. And you know, interior design is all drawing. So I'm like, okay. So I call my friend, she comes. We go to the school dispensary, and you know, like you sit there waiting for test results to come back. And then I go in to see the doctor, and the results are back. And the doctor is like, we can't help you. You have to go home. And I was like, excuse me, what? What do you mean by that? So he says the results are very abnormal, and it's either you go to Kisumu like hospital, or you go home. And then he starts asking me where home is and all that. And I'm like, okay, I'm still processing what's going on. Then a friend of mine comes and she had a car. So she brings me to Kisumu town. Then we board a vehicle. I called my mom and she thought it's just, it's just probably malaria. You know, she didn't know how big of a deal it was. So this time she didn't come for me. Like I went and so we went to the matatu stage and I boarded the matatu and my friend told the matatu guy, just when you get to Eldoret, look for a motorbike, tell them you're going to Kapsoya, Hazina Estate, house number, you know, like the specifics, because it was so bad I couldn't move. And it was so strange. I remember I was given very strong painkillers, so I just slept through the whole journey from Kisumu to Eldoret. And then I got home. My mom hadn't arrived home yet. My sister was the one who was there, my elder sister. So I get home and my sister is like, what's going on? I'm like, well, I woke up like this. As I just told her I'm tired. So she takes me we lie on the couch, and then mom comes. So she's used to it. She'll see me, I'll stand up, I'll hug her, and then we'll talk about why I'm who. Then she comes and she can see I'm struggling to stand to hug her, because my default setting is stand up, hug mom, But then my body isn't responding to the default. Mom looks at me and she's like, what happened? Were you playing? Did you get hurt? And I was like, no, imagine I just woke up like this. My mom broke down. And my mom was like very light. So, you can imagine a light person breaking down, she just turns red. So she was trying not to break down in front of us. So she goes to her room, but she forgot to close her door. So you could see the reflection from the mirror, from her dressing mirror. She was crying. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. So if you're panicking, then it's a bad thing, it's a big deal. The next day, first thing in the morning, mom takes me to hospital and the doctor just sees me like this and he's like, let's do a CT scan. And then at that time, a CT scan was 20,000. My mom is a single mom. My dad died when I was in class 2. Yeah, so the whole time, mom is the one who's raised us and she's a business lady. So she runs a boutique. At the time, 20,000 wasn't money you easily come by. It's not money you just, it's not like 5 shillings. Yeah. So I remember she was just stuck. We went to 3 hospitals and it's the same price all through. But the public hospital where it was supposed to be, I think 5,000 or something, I don't know, they didn't have which chemical that was supposed to be put in the machine. And mom was like, you know what, my daughter needs to be treated today. She makes a few calls here, there. That's when I learned it's really good to be credit worthy so that you can ask for money without questions. I don't know, there's someone she called and she just said, I need 20,000. And it was sent. I got the CT scan done and I was told I have a brain tumor. And that was a blow. That was a huge blow because, the first thing that comes to someone's mind when you say brain tumor, it's cancer, it's death. That's default setting. This is Kenyans, this is Africans, So I was just like, so I'm going to die. It wasn't mom who told me. It was my doctor who told me because mom, after the test, mom took me home. And then she went back to hospital. So when the results came back, so she was just consulting with doctors and all that. And then she came home with a lot of medication and she just looked red. So I knew she had been crying. So I called my doctor and I'm like, what have you told my mother? What is this that you have told her? And then he breaks it down to me and he's like, so we've discovered you have a brain tumor. We don't know if it's cancerous yet. So we'll have to do an MRI to find out. And we're like, okay. So I made the decision to be strong for mom because I couldn't break down and she's breaking down. That strength has always been in her. I've seen how she's raised us. I think it's just something that was kind of just shoved down all of us. The strength was just there. So now I have to be strong for her even though I didn't know what's going on. And everything is hitting me. I'm like, God, so you gave me this talent. I'm supposed to change the world with this talent. Then you take it away. What did I do wrong? That was my question. What did I do wrong? And being a Christian, being brought up as a Christian, that is a crisis of faith. You're not supposed to be questioning God. God is, all-knowing, all-powerful. He knows he has good plans, and at that time, it didn't feel like good plans. We go through that. So it gets to the point where the doctor says, the medication that you're taking, it means you have to defer. You can't take this medication when you're in school. And I'm like, okay, you guys are not serious. Listen, it's my right hand. I will learn how to use my left hand. I don't mind. Imagine I will learn. So I remember staying up at night trying to learn how to use my left hand, to write my name, to draw, so just writing Joy. My name is 3 letters, Joy, but it would take me almost 15 minutes just to get it done because at the time I'm already sick. So my body is already tired, but I'm straining it to learn a whole new thing that it's not even, it's not fashioned to learn. Then it's just there's this time my mom called me. We went to see my doctor and they felt they needed to cancel me. And they're like, it's okay. You can just Maseno doesn't have special exams where you can defer for a semester and come back next semester and proceed. You have to defer a whole year. That meant my entire class would be a class ahead of me. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. So it was so hard. I remember we were actually laughing about this recently with my sister because she was like, do you remember how you cried that your friends will be a class higher than you? And and I said, she was like, I was telling her, it's not about the friends, it's just the whole vibe. Like, this is your crew, these are your people. So being with, it's like, it's like repeating a class, but I haven't failed, so I shouldn't be repeating because I haven't failed, or rather you haven't even given me the chance to fail. We go through that year. It was hectic, it was hard, it was a lot. It was just a lot. And I remember, if there was ever a time my faith as a Christian was tested, was that time. There were so many questions I had. Well, God wasn't answering them. The funny thing is, weirdly, like, I kind of usually say this is my testimony. And I tell myself that every time something hard happens or something heartbreaking happens. That was the time when I was grateful for so many things. I didn't realize that it actually takes effort, or rather there are muscles that are fashioned to put on sandals. I didn't know that opening a bottle is not something you take for granted, like turning the key. Like, it's just, I became so grateful. And I remember the song that played, I think everybody in our house ended up having that song because the only thing that used to calm me down was that song. It's Imela. I don't really know by whom, but the song Imela used to just play every single time, and it would calm me down. And it's so weird because the song translates to thank you, God. So I was like, okay, in that season I wasn't really thankful, but it wasn't like I didn't have reasons to be thankful for, but well, there we were, and that was what was going on. When I resumed in my admission reads 014, but the class I was with was 015. Everybody in the class was 015. And for me, it just felt like there was just so much stigma. But because ideally, most people, I don't know if this is research that has been done or whatever, but according to my findings, most people who had deferred had probably gotten pregnant or decided to leave school. Me didn't do all those things. Me was a good girl, or whatever was termed as good girl at that time. I was focused on my book. So every single time I would tell someone my admission is 014, they'd ask me if I have a baby. And I was like, okay, no. And it felt so bad. No judgment to people who get children early, but that wasn't my path at that time, So yeah, so I felt really there was just a lot of stigma around it, but it was hard just coming back because now I'm doing what I like, but people are way ahead of me. One advantage for me was the fact that I knew the class ahead, so I kind of had it's like cheat sheet. So when we would do a course, I would go to my friends. I'm like, what did you guys learn in this? And sometimes it wouldn't really be the same, but they're related. So I'd always have an upper hand in comparison to my class. But now the downside was my hand hadn't fully recovered. So I was in school, but then I was struggling. I wasn't writing as fast or as normal as I should, So when a lecturer would dictate notes, it would take me so much effort to actually write that. So I remember I had to make friends who I can understand their handwriting. They can bear with me. So they would write and I just write back. And yeah, because now I wasn't going to start telling every lecturer you should not dictate or you should, that was just a whole thing. So yeah, so we did that. And I remember the first time my hand actually, when I regained the speed, I was so happy. It was like, let's have a party, you guys. It was that kind of feeling. I remember I actually went and bought myself a soda and I was like, yep, we're making progress. Yeah, so fast forward to, I think, so this is the story, the genesis of Zamani for me. King Kaka's event. There's an event Safaricom was doing Blaze. They were doing Blaze all around Kenya, I think, and they did one in Kisumu. And I remember I was so psyched for it because at that time I was in Maseno, but I'd never really been to Kisumu, for fun. So we were going for this concert and we're all me and my friends are there, and I am not really a hip hop person. So I couldn't really relate with most of the music. Honestly, I actually don't really relate with King Kaka's music, truth be told. But one thing, there's a presentation he did about Kaka Empire. I was like, I want that. I want that. That is what I want. So when we went back to school, I literally Googled how to build an empire. I was like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. I didn't know what I want to call it. I didn't know how it was going to be done, but I didn't even know what niche. But I was like, I want to do this. Through campus, you also like hear the stories, people, how you finish campus and you have to prepare yourself to tarmac for I don't know how long before you get a job. And I had stories of people who did, I don't know, anthropology and tarmac for 10 years before getting a job. I'm like, you guys, then why are we studying? You know, like, if this is our fate, if this is what is awaiting us after, then why are we here? So I just had the whole idea of building an empire. I didn't know where to start. I didn't really like have a clue. My brother is a very, for his age, by the way, he's a very smart guy, man. I remember telling him about it. My brother is into music. So he had started his band. He literally self-taught guitarist. So I was telling him what I want to do and all that. And he's like, yeah, you should do that. That's a good idea. Especially, so he just blows up with ideas. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that, you know? And my heart is like, I also want to fix this thing about finishing campus and struggling to get jobs, you know? Like, I want to fix that. I remember when I'd come up with like some names, but all of them just did, like they weren't sparking anything in me until we were just seated. Then my bro was like, okay, close that book. Let's just talk. What impact do you want to make? What do you want to sound like? And I was like, well, I'm passionate about art, I'm passionate about culture, and I'm passionate about design. Then he was like, okay, so let's look for a name that is not ordinary, something that someone wouldn't ideally just walk into a shop and think of. Then we just randomly start naming names, and then we just got to Zamani, and I was like, yes, we're doing Zamani. I know he doesn't know this, I don't tell him, but I honestly feel like Zamani wouldn't exist without my brother. Like, he doesn't know that, by the way. We came up with Zamani, but say it was just for the things that I used to create, the little portraits, the stuff I'd create with my hands. So it was like a brand. It wasn't really like a company. Then I remember I think everything I've learned about interior design are things that I learned outside class, or rather running an interior design business, because, well, you need the basics for interior design, but the business aspect, I remember there's a lecturer of ours. I used to come to class early, or I would leave like among the last people. So he would just come and tell us how the practice is, the things he's struggling with, and this client did this and this fundi did this, and you guys, you should know deadlines are actually deadlines out there. You know, like here we can excuse your cut, you know, or your project arriving whatever 1 week later, but out here, deadlines are deadlines, you know? I think I used to pick up on those, more than classwork, really. And for me, I was like, yeah, I want that experience. I want to be able to, even if I'm talking to someone or telling someone about interior design, I want to tell them from experience, not from what people tell me. Slowly by slowly, I just started thinking, and I was like, okay, so I do not have the capital to start an interior design company. So what do we do about that? I was like, okay. So I'm in third year. I have more or less one whole year ahead of me. I can think of this, make it into what I want it to be, and then after campus, we'll see how it goes. The vision wasn't as big, by the way. It was just like a tiny idea just floating in my head, you know? And it seemed okay, like it's something I welcomed. Yeah, we finished campus. I remember that 2019 was, I would call it my version of 2020 was 2019. You see, when everybody was like, oh, 2020 was this and that, and I was like, hey, you guys, 2020 has been amazing. Compared to 2019, you guys, this is a joke. So in 2019, I'm in fourth year. Keep in mind, I've already deferred a whole year. So I've been in campus for 5 years instead of 4. So 2019, January, my final semester, most of my ideas I used to run them by my mom. Like, my mom knew all the projects I was doing. Like, I was just those people. Like, me and my mom, I think I literally owe my degree to my mother. Because I'd be like, Mom, we're doing this project. I have this idea, then she would actually go and look for materials. I remember like one of the things my sister said while we were burying my mom was literally a teacher, an interior designer, and a human resource manager by virtue that her children were those things. She was so actively involved that I think I honestly can't remember a project I did without asking my mom. So we're in fourth year and I come to school. Mom had been sick in December. So just taking care of her. And I remember when January came and I was supposed to go back to school, I'm like, Mom, I'll just stay at home and take care of you because my sister has to go to work. You know, it was just crazy. Then Mom was like, Joy, you're not going to stop studying just because I'm sick. And I was like, okay, but no, who will take care of you? Then so she told me the plans and all that. So I knew it's sorted. So I go back to school and I was just in school for like a week. Every single day I was calling and talking to Mom. This whole time I didn't know Mom was in hospital. You know, on Thursday I left her when she was very sick. Ideally, Mom used to take me to board the matatu and all that. Like she was that kind of mom, you know? So this Thursday when I'm going, she didn't even wake up because we had this routine of when someone's traveling, we all wake up, pray. If it's 5, if it's 4, you will be woken up. So that day, because she was sick, she was just in bed. And I was like, okay, so since we do this, I call my sister and I'm like, since Mom is the one who usually prays, let me pray this time. So I remember praying. And then Mom was like, no, let me pray for you. So she prays. And then I remember like, I don't know if it's an African thing, but parents don't say I love you that often, you know? So I actually remember Mom said, I love you. And I was like, okay, I love you too. And then I went to school. So my sister is the one who took me that day. I'm in school, projects. We've already started getting our projects for the semester and all that. I'm excited because we had been talking about a spa over the holiday. And I remember asking my Mom, would you want to go to a spa? Like when you don't have to worry about school fees and all that. Like we just take you out and like a girl's day out, just you, me, Bresh is my sister. Yeah, and then she was like, yeah, that would be nice. And then I remember the first thing she said, who will stop going to school first so that we can do that? You know? I was like, Mom, as in just picture an ideal scenario where we're all working and we're done with school and you have no worry in this world. And she was like, yeah, that would be amazing. Now, when I got to school and we had our first project and we were supposed to pick a space that you'd want to create. So people would do like restaurants or hospitals. And I remember our lecturer gave us a list of, was it 30 spaces, 30 different possible spaces that we can create. There was butchery, all those spaces that you can think of. So I just saw spa and I was like, yes, this is the one. So I'm so excited. I called Mom all those days and like the few days that I was in school and I was telling her about it. And then I remember planning to start my project early so that I can sneak in some time to go see her. So I remember the Monday that it was so sad because I had called her every single day from the day that I had left. And then Monday, because I really wanted to go home on Tuesday. So I was like, let me not call, let me just work. So I worked until late in the night. So I didn't call. To say hi or just know how she's doing. And and I remember in the morning, I wake up at 5 every day, like clockwork. So I wake up at 5 and our habits, phone, WhatsApp. So I'm like, Lisa is online. Lisa does not wake up that early. We all know that. You know, like all her friends know that. I'm saying my sister is online. Her fiance at the time is online. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Then a few minutes in, so I go to the washroom, I come back, and there's this verse that says, teach me how to number my days. That was the verse ringing in my head, and I'm like, huh? Because I had never read it. To be honest, I'd never come across that verse before until that day. I come to the room, then a message comes in. Now, this is from Lisa is my friend. She's my childhood friend. We've known each other for like 15 years. Her auntie, who's in Germany, texts me saying, oh, my condolences. And I'm like, wait, what? Who died? Because I was like, no, this is a lie. This is a lie. There is no way. See, just talked to Mom the other day. I was alone in the room. So I was like, okay. So I take deep breaths because I was about to scream. I was literally going to scream, and it's 5 a.m. and you're in a hostel, so it would really be weird. So I called my mom immediately. She's not picking up. So I called my sister. Mama Kwapi, where's mom? And then she's like, I see Joy, right now it's 5. Mom is asleep. And I'm like, wake her up. I want to talk to her. And then she's like, no, you just come. You'll talk to her when she wakes up. So I'm like, no. There's, that instinct at the back of your mind. You're like, I know, but I don't know. Like I need confirmation. So here I am. I'm like, okay. So my sister is like, who are you with? I'm like, I'm alone. And then she's like, who's the nearest person you can get to? So I'm like, Hazel. Hazel is in her room. So she's like 2 rooms after mine. So she's like, I want you to switch off your phone. I want you to go stay with Hazel. I'm sending someone to come pick you. So I was like, okay. So I go to Hazel's room and, I'm knocking because people are asleep. It's 5 a.m., So I'm knocking, then Hazel opens the door and she's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I think my mom is dead. And she was like, oh. And so I just said that and I started crying and it just broke down. And she was holding me. What do I do? She's asking me, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I tell her, Bresh has said, she's sending someone. I don't know who she's sending and all that. So my sister, I have this thing of making sure all my friends are friends. Like I kind of just link them together so that it's like one big happy family. So my sister had Hazel's number. So she calls Hazel and gives her instructions and all that. And then she just tells me to stay. She tells her to stay with me. So she sends someone and he comes to pick me up. And I'm just like, the whole time in my head, I'm like, no, there is no way. Like, mom is strong. Mom is superhuman, like she can't just die. Like it felt surreal, like so we go home and then I get to the my boyfriend at the time is the one who came to pick me because he was the closest person to where I was. So we go home and I'm at the gate and I see some vehicles coming out and people looking at me in this sad faces. And I'm like, okay, this is real. Like, I knew it had happened. Like, I knew, but then I didn't know. Like, I was like, no. So I get to the house and there's this, like, church people, family, friends. Like, people are just everywhere in the house. I'm like, what is going on? They've removed the carpet, they've removed the couch, to make more space for people. I'm like, okay. So I see my sister and she just holds me and then she pulls me to mom's room. So in my head the whole time I'm expecting to go to mom's room and find mom there. Because this whole time I didn't know my mom was in hospital. So apparently she had been admitted that Thursday that I left. But she didn't want me to know. She literally told my sister, let Joy enjoy her final semester in campus. I get home, my sister breaks the news, and I remember the first thing that hit me was, who's going to attend my graduation? Because honestly, the 5 years it was our struggle. Mom and I, this was our journey, like everything, it was us against the world. I knew, okay, obviously other people would want to attend my graduation, but the only person that mattered was mom attending. The rest, there were just sidebars. Then like the people who were there were like, we will all attend and I don't know what. And and I'm just like, no. So I tried, like I'm asking my sister what happened. And she was just like, as in, she's trying to be strong because, well, she's the firstborn as well. So 2019 just goes by. I'm in 4th year. The money just stopped for me. Like, because at that time, I hadn't learned that when you're running a business, you have to find a way to separate the business from you. For me, the money was me, So if Joy wasn't okay, the money wasn't okay. It was hard. It was so hard because I want to, like, there is this, I want to do these things, but then there is grief, and grief is chaotic. grief is so unplanned for. Like, it's just things that happen, feelings that come and you don't understand, and you are angry sometimes and you're happy sometimes, and it's just a lot. I remember getting to a point where I was like, you know what, they just finish school, look for employment. Right now, the friends of moms, they will link me to, like, I don't have to struggle and build the money. I mean, I'm justified. I have a justified reason to quit, And every time I thought that, I wouldn't finish the thought process. I'd start thinking about that, then something would just stop. It's like my mind goes in this like nothing box. I can't see a future past that. I can't see a future past quitting. So I was like, okay, we're moving. And I remember during my attachment. So I remember this whole time people were telling me, you're so lucky. That's like worst thing to tell someone who's grieving, by the way. Like, worst thing, you're so lucky that your mom died when you are an adult. So, and I'm like, wow, thanks, by the way. Who even says that? But anyway, so I remember just feeling like I am lucky that mom died when I'm in my final semester, and she had established a foundation. So I told myself, or rather I made myself not grieve. Like, I didn't go through grief. I didn't feel it the way I think I should have. So this is January. I finished school, I catch up and all that. It's March, then April, a bit of a break, then May we were supposed to start our attachment. So I go to Nakuru, and I remember actually I looked for that attachment with mom, and I remember like when we decided on it's Nakuru, like I'd even told her. So we had worked on those people, literally my attachment was in May, but by December I knew where I was going for attachment. When my friends were looking for attachment in April, I knew where I was going for attachment already. Like, I just like to plan things ahead a lot. I didn't plan for mom dying, So it was just like the whole period was really hard. And when I was done with attachment, I enjoyed the experience. I got to learn so many things. And I remember part of the things that I chose from the place I selected to go for my attachment was, one, I didn't want Nairobi. Two, I didn't want a place that was very established, because that would mean I'd be seated behind a computer desk doing renders and I'd probably never meet the clients. I wouldn't ever see the face of the person who owns this building. I'd never know basically how much this building is worth, or even deal with the fundis, because ideally that's basically what our attachment kind of looks like. When you go to an established organization, you're seated behind a desk 9 to 5, and that wasn't sitting so well with me. So I picked I picked a company that was like 3 years old, and I went there, and I remember the first time you've bought attachment outfits. You've bought dresses and skirts and shoes and all that, and heels, because it's all official and formal. Then I remember the first time I meet my boss, and he's like, you should have picked a different outfit. And I was like, why? And then he's like, we don't have an office. And I was like, oh, okay. Though, like, ideally that was the choice. I just thought, okay, they could have something like an office. I mean, somewhere, where do they go? So I remember like most part of attachment was us being on site. We did everything on site, we're there with fundis. There's like a cabinet being fixed here, there is the ceiling being done there, and you're seated here, there's another client who wants a render done. So it's just everything all at once. I really enjoyed it. I would go home in the evening and I was happy. I don't know if it's something Grace had also mentioned. Sometimes we tend to focus so much on work so that we don't have to process anything else that's going on. It's like a very unhealthy thing, but we do that. When I was done with my attachment, I remember handing in my report, and I told my lecturer, I think I've decided employment is not for me. And you know what he told me? Prepare yourself to sleep hungry. That's what he said. And I was like, I am so ready. And basically from there, it's just been me trying to figure this out. It's easy to be an interior designer. It's really hard to run an interior design business. I am looking for clients who are willing to take me up as their choice designer when they can, they can get a fundi or a constructor or a contractor or, just plus the other thing is in Kenya, interior design is not really a thing. Or rather, it started being noticed of recent times, but ideally people don't really understand what interior designers do. Because most of the time I'd approach someone and they're like, oh, so I can order curtains, and because they think that's what we do. We install curtains and buy flowers and cushions. That's basically what their notion of what an interior designer does. But we do so much. We do so much. It's crazy. So far, I think my biggest pride moment was being nominated for FOIA, Founder of the Year. The category was Most Promising Founder Under 30, and I was like, I didn't expect it because what I want Zamani to be, the vision is to create a place where I can create employment for people and still do what I love and still earn a living out of it. And also change this whole narrative of ladies can't do certain things, because where is it written? Also, I want to uphold our roots and try achieve sustainability. It's a very difficult approach because very few people do that with their design, because most of the materials are not necessarily sustainable, so they have negative impacts on the environment. So I want Zamani to outlast me. That's why, from the word Zamani, past, I want it to outlast me. It should be something from the past but stays all the way. We borrow from past designs, incorporate it with modern trends to create designs that are sustainable for the future. That's basically the vision.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. That was quite the story. If you head over to our YouTube channel and you check out the Legally Clueless Tours Kisumu episode, you might just spot Joy you actually will spot Joy in that episode, because that's where we recorded her story. And hers is a story full of, just a series of many things that she had to navigate, many very heavy things. One of the things when she was talking about the moment where she had the brain tumor, it just makes you really think about health and the everyday things that we take for granted. When she said, tying your sandals and stuff, just getting out of bed, putting your feet down off the bed, standing up, walking, just everyday things really that we really take for granted. I'm in a space where I've lost so much weight, which is, for my body, it's so irritating. It's one of the easiest things for it to do. And then putting on weight is one of the hardest things for my body to do. And it's, I know for many people that would be like the dream situation, but it's not when you are trying to have a healthy body. But yeah, being in the space, I'm trying to understand what my body has carried me through and just like honor it. Remember to take all my meals, and like listening to her speak, it's just like, yeah, man, treat this body well. They're everyday things it does for us that we really take for granted. Anyway, do remember that if you want to share your story as well on this podcast, in the show notes, there is a Google form. Fill it out and I will get in touch with you and we'll record your story. Also remember that you can catch Legally Clueless on Trace Radio if you're in Kenya. Just go to traceradio.co.ke for a list of all the frequencies. But also don't forget, we're there every Monday and Wednesday at 12 noon and 11 p.m. and Friday at 12 noon. Super awesome news coming up soon. Soon. Let me even just tell you now. Legally Clueless is going to be on Trace Radio every single day. It's going to be quite the challenge for me production wise, but it is growth and it means something's working. So I have to rise to the occasion, right? Right. Again, if you're new to this podcast, audio episodes like this go out every single Monday. We have 2 seasons of our video series out on our YouTube channel. And before the end of March, season 3 is going to be out too. It's going to be pretty awesome. We are already working on that. And we also have our tour series out as well, so you can watch that. I feel like Legally Clueless started off as, your traditional audio podcast. And now it's like morphed into a platform stroke network, which is fantastic, And it's just a testament that there is no limit to what you can do. So I'm pretty excited for our growth. And lastly, Dubai episode goes out on Friday, the 18th of March on our YouTube channel. And I hope you enjoy it. Catch you next week. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.